Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Langley Lab, brought to you by yours truly, Haya Langley, an HRIS consultant out in the real world, solving problems for everyday clients. And I'm excited to bring some of my expertise in this video to show you how I've used platform configuration rules and validation rules to, one, ensure data integrity is valid throughout the system, and to prompt warning messages if there ever is a need for a correction on a specific given page. So that's what we'll be going into, and we'll be going over PC rules and how certain conditions that we set up, if and then conditions, can lead to auto default values on a specific page as well. So let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so once again, this video is brought to you by Langley Consulting, but our YouTube channel is called Langley Lab, and this is dedicated to just training the public that is just looking for answers and maybe a simplified explanation of what some of these things are, and step-by-step instructions with screenshots that you can just take back and apply immediately to your own environment. So let's take a look at a couple of definitions to start with. The key things to know here are that PC rules control how the system works and reads and interprets your data so that it can make certain changes, such as apply default values to certain pages. Validation rules, they confirm that the data entered into the system is complete, accurate, and meets required specifications. I'm going to go over a simplified, and when I say simplified, it's kind of a little complicated, but don't worry. You can always slow this down or take a couple of retakes of this video to make sure you fully understand it. And then, of course, operators is something I'll be commonly using. They are like the less than, greater thans in the world, if you're not familiar with those items. And then drivers, these are the data elements that will trigger a different control rule. And we'll walk through examples of all of these in the following slides. So don't you worry. All right, part one of this presentation, we'll be going into platform configuration rules. And the most common PC rule comes from a scenario like this. Boss man comes to you, or boss woman, says, we have some employees who are hourly and are now salary, maybe because they went on a leave or because they had a job change. And boss man's like, how can we make sure that they're auto paid? An employee was not auto paid last pay period, maybe. So you, as the employee, because you watched this video, you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to do that. I can create a PC rule to make sure that that happens every time that there is a change from one type of job to another type of job. And the boss man gives you the praises. All right, let me know when it's done. And so you get to work. So step one, and this is using the new user experience. I know that it is still undergoing a lot of development, and the new release date for this new look is actually the official permanent rollout date has been moved from March to later in the year, I believe third quarter. So you have a little bit more time to play with this look and get familiar with it. But step one, you go to application setup, go scroll down to that configure platform configuration and content management section and click on rules. Once you're there, you will click add. If you don't have any rules, this area will be blank. And if it's blank, you've got a lot of room to grow. And that is exciting because there's a lot of ROI to unpack in this area. So after you click add, you will then add a name here, and you can choose whatever name makes the most sense to you. For this simple example, I'll be putting is autopaid. And I will add the class. And if you've seen a couple of our other videos of where we go into platform configuration fields or how to create one, feel free to look at our menu. We talk a little bit about classes and how they're essentially groups of data and how the system organizes the data. So in most cases, you're probably going to be working with the employment class, and that's what we will be choosing for this specific scenario. Step 4, we will add a condition, and by that, what I mean is we're going to add a field that we want to be the driver. As you recall, we covered this in our glossary. A driver is going to be what drives a certain change to happen. So we're not necessarily defining the driver here. We're just saying this is the field that's going to drive a change. We're not saying what value in that field is going to drive a change yet. So we're just selecting it for now. We're telling the system, hey, salary or hourly is the field we want to look at to ensure that it is driving the is auto paid flag. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll have the option to say when this field is selected and some value is selected that we'll define later, then these fields will be set. So we're going to only drive one field, but note that these are all checkboxes. So if we really wanted to drive multiple fields to default values based on this field or multiple fields, because you can also have multiple conditions drive certain fields to default values, then you will use this little arrow after you've selected the field or fields that you want to drive or to be set as default values over to the right-hand side by selecting this little arrow. And once you're done there, you're like, wait, I didn't add anything. I don't know what it did. Don't worry, it's disabled at this point. We have not enabled it. If we truly wanted to enable it, we would have had to click here, but we're leaving that intentionally off for now because we haven't set any conditions, so we don't want anything to happen. But when we add it and go back, we'll now have this option available to add what's called value sets. And this is where we get into the bread and butter of adding those specific conditions that will drive certain values. So once you click into add, you'll have another option to click add, multiple ads here. And when you do that, you'll have this pop-up screen where you can then select what value this field will equal to then drive auto-pay to be set as a no or yes. And when you click on it, it gives you this drop down and you can select the value that you wanted to drive. So I'm saying here, when this salary hourly field equals salaried, meaning that whoever entered this change into the system selected salaried, then make sure that the auto paid box is checked. And as you notice, first of all, it says no here, but when I clicked on it, it gave me the option to have this checkbox, and I clicked on the checkbox and then clicked OK. That is all you need to do. You have to make sure you click OK every time, otherwise it will not apply. And then after you've clicked OK, you can then click Save, and now your rule is saved. Now it's not enabled yet, but it is there. And then you can say if nothing else applies, this little checkbox down here, then make sure to apply these values. And we're just going to say no. Ideally, you're doing this somewhere in a test environment, or let's say it's your first time doing this. So you're like, I want to double check that it's working right. You either one, you're doing this off hours, off normal working business hours where these changes are being submitted, or two, you do it in the test environment, which is highly, highly preferred. So in this example, we're going to go ahead and enable it. And now I can tell, because the status column is showing enabled, that this is an active rule that is now working. So let's test it out. In our test environment here, I'm clicking into an employee from my team overview, and I have the edit function here. I can also go to change job or change job salary under things I can do. But for this example, I'm just going to click that edit icon. I'm going to select hourly or salary and change it over to salaried. Right now it's hourly, and as you can see, the pay automatically box is unchecked. But as soon as I change this salaried or hourly field to salaried, bam, the pay automatically box is checked, saving you many, many hours of review work and audit work of making sure that these employees are auto paid. So now you can go back to your boss man and say, hey, I verified it's working. All salaried employees will now be auto paid. And guess what? You might want to add a condition, and I didn't show this there, but I'll add this as an extra tidbit, like, hey, we might want to consider when employees go on unpaid leave of absences that they are also auto paid, like that box should be unchecked. So that might be an additional condition you add as you're looking at that field. So just a tidbit. And the way that would work is you'd add a second condition to the salary hourly section, and you would add a second condition that says if the status equals L, then, uncheck. And if it's salaried, then you probably want that box unchecked, depending on your company's policies and such. Your boss man's bound to praise you for making such a simple improvements that is going to improve data quality. And our top priority is always to make sure that the employee's receiving their fair compensation. So this is a huge improvement that you can make now into your environment. And let's jump into part 2, validation rules. Your boss comes to you and says, hey, is there a way we can have full-time employees schedule the work hours be within a certain range? Because maybe you have dynamic workforce and people are confused about what a full-time employee's hours should be in the system. So you're like, oh yes, of course, I know of a way to do this. We can use validation rules. Oh, can we also make sure if someone is making edits that they know what range they need to be in? Sure. Let's add a warning pop-up message that will come up if they enter an invalid range. Like, awesome. I'll let you know when it's in place. And so you get to work. All right. Now, before you start, I want to be really, really clear about this. You want to make sure that you write out the formula and what the logic will look like before you get started. And you're like, Kyle, this is a lot. And trust me, I know. This is actually a real life example of a validation rule we had to do for a client. So I wanted to give you that. And so I had to write it out literally in Notepad, or you can just take pencil to paper. You want to make sure you have all these parentheses and the order of the logic clear, very, very clear. So I know for this specific client that employee type has to equal this code, SNE, or SE, or reg. So those are the 3 types of employee types that we want to make sure they fall within a certain range for scheduled work hours. Now, the way validation rules work is it's going to say, okay, if it meets these conditions that I'm outlining here, give us a warning message of some sort. Right? So you also want to write down, what is that warning message going to look like for something like this? This is saying if they have any of these employee types selected and their scheduled work hours fall outside of this range, where it's below 69.34, which this was for a semi-monthly client. So they didn't want the scheduled hours to be below that for a full-time employee, or to fall above 86.67 because it drives the hourly rate for that employee. So scheduled work hours is a big deal in UKG's field. So we want to make sure that we outline this before we get into it, and you'll see why. So let's jump into the area where we're going to build this validation rule. Now, the easiest way to do this is to go to the pages in platform configuration and go to the page where you might find the fields, such as scheduled hours that we want to work with. So I'm going to say add employee job. It could really be on any page that you would find this field on, because when you click on the field on that specific page, you'll have the option to click configure field. Take a note of what that field name looks like right here, because that's what the field name will appear when you're trying to build this validation rule. So I want to make sure I take note of that. And I am also taking note of what employee type looks like on the page, because it looks different, right? If you try to look for employee type, you type that all out, you're not going to find the field that you're looking for. So that's why it's important to make note of what this specific field looks like. And it's called EE type, not employee type. And that's found only by clicking on the pages or pulling a report. But for now, I will leave it as that. Next, we will go ahead and add a validation rule. Now, for this specific area, I'm going to go back a little bit here. We're going to find scheduled hours and then select configure field. I skipped that step here. So this configure field button is what we're going to select after you've taken note of those two names. That is what we clicked on to get to this page. Now, I scrolled down a little bit in this screenshot to kind of show you other rules. There's other rules that we've built here, but I'm going to work on building my rule. And the way you want to start this rule off is by clicking Add Rule and then click on Create Formula. And when you create a formula, you want to make sure that you're building it from the inside out. So you may want to just follow the instructions here, but I know that my innermost part of my formula is that and statement. So I want to make sure that the and is at the center of what I do. So I'm going to select the equal sign that appears right after I click Create Formula. This equal sign will pop up, and that's what I will want to select and select enclose within operation. And then I'm going to select from this drop-down list and change that equal sign to an and statement. And now I'll have two different sides of my equation. So I'm keeping this up here, my little chicken scratch up here, to make sure that we can follow along. This is what our final rule should look like more or less. We're going to enclose with an operation again and select OR. Do this 3 times over to match the 3 OR statements. So we have an OR statement here, OR statement here, and another here. So we're going to repeat that until it looks something like this. And we're going to repeat that on this side of the formula as well. Then once we have our bones of our equation built, we have the operators and how it's going to ultimately look like. Then we select the box and select enclose within operation because we want it to show a less than sign. Do this again until all these signs in the center match our final formula. So this right here, if you remember our chicken scratch, which I don't see, it's up here. We want these to be equals, 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 and these over here are less than and greater than symbols. So that's what we're trying to mimic when we're changing these right here. And this is what the final one should look like. We change these operators to be less than and greater than. Okay, step 9, we will then select the box and click Edit Variable. And by that, we're saying, hey, if a change is made to this, or if this field equals something, which we know from our notes earlier that this is called EE type, then select what that specific employee type would look like. SE salaried exempt, click OK, and repeat that process until you have all the employee types selected that are part of this equation. When you click on the opposite side, it's going to allow you to select from a drop-down list. So that's actually really nice. It'll tell you what are the actual valid fields for EE type. And then for the other side of the equation, the other side of this and statement, you will select scheduled hours, and this is where you have a free-form box. You specify that if this is a change to a numeric constant, and then you enter the hours there down to the decimal point. I think you can go up to like 4 decimal points. Then you click OK, and you do the same thing for the other side of the equation, where you selected the other part that's on this side to make sure that if it's a change to a numeric constant and you tell it what specifically that constant should be. If it's greater than that, click OK. And now we just confirm that our equation looks the same. So I just compared it back and forth. Okay, the logic makes sense. If this side of the formula is met and this side of the formula is met, then show me a specific validation message. So that's what I'm going to do next. So The validation message I'm putting in here is this is a full-time employee. Please update scheduled work hours to be between 69.34 and 86.67. So that's the message I copied and pasted into the validation box because it's not very dynamic and you can't format it very well into this box. But you can add translations if you want to. I will make a note of this here, but you can make this visible to certain employees. We made this applicable to all employees in this specific example, but if you wanted it to only apply to a certain group, you could absolutely do that by selecting this hyperlink here. But I'm not covering that in today's video. Step 13, you verify that the validation message is working. So let's go ahead and use our test employee here. Go to the admin overview, our team overview, and now we're going to select our job summary page. We clicked edit. And when I try to change the scheduled hours to something outside of the range, right, that I specified in this validation message, it gives me an error message. And it will not let me save or proceed with this change until I have fixed my scheduled work hours field. So that is the power that validation rules has. Because I said if it falls outside that range, give us this error message. So that is very, very powerful and will save you a ton of time trying to audit that this field is correct. So now you can go back to your boss man and say, hey, I validated the rule, tested it, the error message will pop up. Obviously, you want to do a little bit more extensive testing, making sure you're popping in a couple more different scheduled work hours and making sure that they're not getting any false errors. So, of course, we tested it fully at this point, and your boss man gives you praises, or boss woman, and they are like, what would we do without you? And that is what you're going for. So we hope you found this presentation helpful. If you're interested in working together, or that was kind of like too big of a overview and you're like, I got lost, feel free to contact us. We love providing this kind of content, and it definitely helps when you subscribe or like our videos because we read every single comment and we love to see new subscribers come to the channel. So thank you so much for coming to Langley Lab. We hope to see you next time. We try to roll these out every month, so be on the lookout. All right, take care, everybody.